Nigeria's news updates today, May 16, 2026. Tinubu returns to Lagos after 3-nation trip. President Tinubu says paying taxes is essential for citizenship amid economic hardship, insisting on compliance. EFCC charges Blessing CEO over alleged 36 million naira fraud in Lagos and remands her in custody. Dangote Refinery files a lawsuit against Attorney General over fuel import licenses issued to marketers. NJC suspends 2 judges, dismisses appeals from 8 others, and recommends 12 new Court of Appeal justices. Terrorists strike 3 Oyo schools, while Boko Haram also attacked a school in Borno and abducted pupils. Now, let us go to the news in details. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu returned to Lagos on Friday evening, landing at Murtala Mohammed International Airport around 7:12 p.m., where he was received by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and other top officials. He had just completed a 3-nation diplomatic and investment tour of France, Kenya, and Rwanda. In France, he met global investors to emphasize transparency and fiscal discipline. In Kenya, he attended the African Forward Summit hosted by President Macron and Ruto, called for reforming the global financial architecture to better serve Africa, and highlighted Nigeria's blue economic potential, offering to share the country's maritime intelligence with Gulf of Guinea states. He also held a bilateral meeting with Madagascar's president. In Rwanda, he joined the African CEO Forum alongside leaders, investors, and global CEO to discuss economic transformation through regional integration and cross-border investment. He met bilaterally with President Paul Kagame as well as with delegations from the IFC, APM Terminals, and Winme Group, reporting favorable outcomes. The outcome of the Rwandan visit also saw the president approving a 30 days reciprocal visa-free for Rwandan citizens. Nigeria has officially activated a reciprocal 30-day visa-free entry arrangement for Rwandan citizens following a directive from President Bola Tinubu at the African CEO Forum in Kigali. The Nigerian Immigration Service announced that Rwandan nationals can now enter Nigeria without a visa for up to 30 days for tourism, business, or official purposes, reciprocating a similar gesture already extended to Nigerians by Rwanda. Those wishing to stay longer must obtain a visa through a Nigerian embassy or the e-visa system. The policy is effective immediately at all international entry points and is aimed at deepening bilateral ties and promoting intra-African mobility and economic cooperation. While in Lagos, Tinubu will participate in the APC primary elections starting Saturday, urging party members to keep the peace and act as sportsmen and women in the party's and nation's interest. President Bola Tinubu said at the African CEO Forum in Kigali that Nigerians who are not paying taxes without lawful exemptions should not be regarded as citizens, stressing that taxation is essential for national development. He argued that governments cannot provide infrastructure, healthcare, and social services without tax revenue, even though taxation is unpopular across all social classes. He compared paying taxes to a painful but necessary process like childbirth and said citizens often demand development without considering how it is funded. His comments comes amid growing public frustration over rising taxes, inflation, fuel subsidy removal, and economic hardship in Nigeria. Tinubu also highlighted Nigerians' rising debt servicing costs, saying they limit government spending on key sectors and renewed calls for reforms in the global financial system to make borrowing cheaper for African countries. Critics, however, argue that his economic policies have worsened living conditions despite claims of improving microeconomic stability. Now, let us go to the anti-graft agency. Social media influencer Blessing CEO Okoro Blessing Nkiruka has been arraigned by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission over an alleged 36 million naira fraud case in Lagos. She was brought before the Federal High Court in Ikoyi on 2 charges of obtaining money by false pretense and stealing. The EFCC alleges she received 36 million naira from a woman under the claim of leasing a 6-bedroom duplex in Lekki, Lagos, but later converted the money for personal use. During court proceedings, her lawyer said 24 million naira had already been refunded and suggested the parties were trying to settle the remaining balance. However, the EFCC opposed any private settlement, insisting the case should proceed in court. She pleaded not guilty to the charges. The judge ordered her to be remanded in EFCC custody while awaiting bail proceedings, and the case was adjourned to June 5, 2026 for trial. Now let us go to Dangote Refinery, as he is having problem again with NMDPRA. Dangote Petroleum Refinery has filed a new lawsuit against Nigeria's Attorney General, challenging fuel import licenses issued to oil marketers and the NNPCL by the NMDPRA. The refinery is asking Federal High Court in Lagos to cancel the permits, arguing they violate a court order and undermine local refining by allowing continued petrol import despite its large capacity refinery now operating in Nigeria. Fuel regulators and marketers, however, insist imports are still necessary to prevent fuel shortages because domestic production is not yet sufficient. The dispute highlights ongoing tension in Nigeria's oil sector, especially between efforts to promote local refining and the continued reliance on imported petrol. Dangote also claims it faces high costs due to limited crude oil supply from Nigerian producers, forcing it to buy from international traders at higher prices. Overall, the case reflects a wider struggle over control of Nigeria's fuel supply chain and the role of the Dangote refinery versus importers. Now let us go to the judiciary. The National Judicial Council (NJC) at its 111th meeting on 13th May 2026 took several major disciplinary and administrative decisions affecting the Nigerian judiciary. The council suspended 2 judges for 1 year without pay over misconduct. Justice Ibrahim D. Shekarau of the Nasarawa State High Court was sanctioned for granting an expert order that led to the transfer of 7 million naira without proper due process, which the NJC said showed bad faith and lack of professional competence. Justice Edward A. Ope of the FCT High Court was also suspended for violating fair hearing principles in a matrimonial case where he allegedly granted expert orders without notifying the other party. The NJC also rejected appeals from 8 judges in Imo State who were compulsorily retired over alleged age falsification and related misconduct, stating they failed to present new evidence to overturn earlier sanctions. However, it reinstated 1 Imo judicial officer after fresh evidence was verified as authentic. In contrast, the council reaffirmed the earlier decision to recommend 12 new justices to the Court of Appeal, along with additional judicial appointments for the Benue State High Court and Katsina Sharia Court of Appeal. It also introduced new guidelines for appointing retired public servants into judicial roles, requiring transparency in service, history, financial disclosure, and a minimum remaining service period to ensure effective long-term judicial contribution. The NJC further extended the acting appointment of the Imo State Chief Judge and urged speedy appointment of a substantive Chief Judge to stabilize the state judiciary. Overall, the decision combines strict disciplinary actions against judicial misconduct with new appointments and reforms aimed at strengthening integrity, accountability, and efficiency in Nigeria's court system. On terrorism, armed terrorists attacked 3 schools in Orire local government area of Oyo State on Friday, killing an assistant headmaster, abducting several pupils and teachers, and causing panic across nearby communities. The affected schools were Baptist Nursery and Primary School, Community Grammar School, and LA Primary School. Witnesses say the attackers arrived on motorcycles around 9 a.m., shooting sporadically and moving quickly between schools. The assistant headmaster of LA Primary School, Joel Adesian, was shot dead while trying to escape, while an Okada rider was also killed during the chaos. The attackers kidnapped the principal of Community Grammar Schools, Mrs. Michael Alamu, along with 5 teachers and an unspecified number of pupils. Residents say the gunmen used the principal's vehicle to transport some victims before abandoning and burning it after it developed a fault. Traditional ruler Obatajuddin Abioye confirmed the attack and said even kindergarten pupils were abducted. He blamed the scale of the attack on the absence of a nearby police station, noting that security operatives arrived nearly 2 hours later, Security forces, including police and military personnel, have since launched search operations in nearby forests, where the attackers reportedly escaped. The incident forced many residents to flee their homes, while families searched desperately for missing children. One relative said his 16-year-old niece had not returned home since leaving for school that morning. In a related development, another school attack was reported in Musa community near the Sambisa forest in Borno State, where gunmen allegedly abducted several pupils from a primary school. Local officials say the attackers struck shortly after security patrols left the area. Both incidents have renewed concerns over worsening insecurity and repeated attacks on schools across Nigeria. That is the news updates for today. Follow for more. May 16, 2026.